sign this right now.
I mean, I'll tell you right now, you know, that like, so this summer, we have Zach with this old, and Jason, like the second day I didn't see it. And so they get a strongly worded email. You know, I don't send the most strongly worded emails. We had an email war back, I don't know what it was, 15 years ago. Not Colleen and I, but I learned my lesson. Emails are not the best way to have an argument. But anyway, that like, hey, I have not seen the syllabus or Katie form, so I'm assuming you have not started. I want that signed ASAP. And then usually it's, you know, because then, like I'll send something out like to the student, like, hey, how's it going? They're like, oh, it's great. Like, you're going to be pulled from this assignment if I do not see the syllabus and Katie form immediately. You know. So what happens with the syllabus and Katie form is I'll show you. And this is where A-Track gets a little bit, I'll say, kooky. And I told them this. To me, this doesn't make the most sense. But let me go into like a syllabus here. All right, or yeah. So here's the syllabus. Now this is a residency and athletic training 2 syllabus, but it's all going to be the same. All right, whether you're going to obviously see. Now, one of the other things that in your case it won't be a big deal because you have one student. In your case, it's a little bit different because you're just going to see the fellowship one. I can do that because you have different residencies. Although I think you only have you have residency and fellowship, so you will see more than one syllabus on there. So it just becomes important in the future that you know, oh, I have Dave and Dave's a fellowship 1. Oh, I have Chris. Chris is a residency 3. Now, at the end of the day, if you screw it up, it's not the big, because it happens every once in a while. I'm like, hey, you know, you filled out the wrong one. You know, it doesn't happen that often. So just know what course. It's kind of like you got to know what course you're teaching. You know what I mean? Yeah. But we do that every once in a while as faculty members. I walked into a class one time and there's someone writing on the board. Like, can I help you? She's like, no, go grab a seat. This is my class. She's like, oh, I thought it was Tuesday. I'm so sorry. You know, you're teaching the wrong class.
I've taped the wrong body parts before.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah,
Somebody, I taped the wrong. I blame him. He handed me the wrong hand, and I taped it.
Yeah.
And then 10 minutes later, he came back. He's like, actually, it's my left hand. I'm like, well, that's your fault.
So I
not my fault.
I have noticed I have a functional dyslexia.
Yeah.
If I'm looking at the left knee and then they flip over for some reason, I'm like, which leg was it again? Yeah, I know. So, so if you felt the wrong one, we can definitely fix that. But so if we look at a syllabus, and they're all going to look basically the same, it'll look something like this. Now, what you're supposed to do, now again, this is where if you have a problem, your student, when you go select user, should show up, and then your clinical site should show up. All right. If it doesn't, email me ASAP. That's an easy fix. So what you're going to do is, and this could be really, to be honest, this takes like 5 minutes.
Add that.
Yeah. And then, you know, in your case, you have a bunch, so you can just all come over here, you know, or I know sometimes you have them coming in at different times, but however, you're going to go over this with the student, all right? And then particularly the grading criteria, which we're going to talk about when everybody gets here. Now, the students, to be honest, this isn't the highlight of their day, and they don't care about it until, like, they care about it, right? Until, like, you know, your whatever, your midterm wasn't great. This is going to affect your, you know, so whatever. So you can see this is 20 to 25 hours that they do for residency. Fellowship's going to be 40, all right? So if you go down here, these to the right won't be here. This is just because I'm in like administrator view, but this will be. Colleen loves when you do the digital signature. But anyway, I have it set up so what you would do is you would put your email and your password for A-Track in. And then and this is where I think it's a little stupid, personally. It would be nice if you and the student could just sign it right there on the same form. And I said that, like, why, if the preceptor has logged in, why can't we just have the student sign? Because what happens is if the student signs it now, it's going to be like the preceptor signed it. Right, so it's not going to come through. So what happens is you need to put your email, your password, and there will be a submit form that's down here, and you submit it. It then, because the student is assigned to you, the student has to log in and then sign it. All right. The best practice is that you do this, submit it, and then the student logs in and submits it. Every once in a while, as long as you've gone over it with them, the student will submit it later, right? Let's just say you have 3 or 4 of them, and you're like, guys, go on an A-track by the end of today and submit it. Now, that's not ideal, and the reason being is that it's not the greatest because it doesn't show that you did it at the same time as a student.
Oh, yeah.
It's still fine. It's okay, because I get in real life that kind of happens. Where it becomes problematic is if it's like 3 days later, you know, or something like that. So I tend to try to go onto A-track and say, like, Dave, the syllabus is sitting in your folder. Did you go over it? Yes. You need to sign. You know. Again, best case scenario is you do it at the same time, right? In fact, they have one student. You log out, they log in. Good. Or they have their cell phone.
Most of the students will do it on their phone.
Yes.
So I'll be sitting at my computer.
Which is perfect.
And now, like, I usually have 5 to 7 students, so it's like a little conveyor belt. You come in, I sign, go on your phone, you sign. Just because that way we don't get into the who didn't sign and where did I sign.
And you get, and Colleen knows, you'll get emails from me like,
yeah.
hey, make sure let's get the syllabus done, you know, or something
Yeah,
along
so
those
most
lines.
of them do it on their phones, is what I found. So.
Okay, the Katie form is the same deal, right? The Katie form goes over kind of the Katie policies, but you're going to sit down and go through it with the student. Again, you sign and submit, student signs and submits.
Okay.
These two are the ones that are done before patient care.
Okay.
All right? Then, from an A-track perspective, it's midterm and final. All right? Now, the midterm you won't see until it becomes available. So some point mid-semester, and I give you about like a 3-week window, you fill out the midterm. And then the student can't see it, but go over it with the student and then submit it. All right? Now, the one thing, if you fill it out in piecemeal, will it save?
Yes, you can save and finish later.
Okay, perfect.
And the submit form's on the bottom right, there's a save and finish later form on the bottom, button on the bottom left when you're in it, yeah.
Yeah. So, so you can, like, if you start working on it, because you'll get like a 3-week window, start working on it, and then once you're done, sit the student down, go over it with them. That's important. That we want to have. That should be timestamped about the same time. Because if we see that sitting there, then we email like, did they go over the midterm with you? You know, so before you submit it, go over it with them, then submit, and then the student logs in and sign it. So it's the same principle.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then you do the same thing for the final. Okay? Now, here's the other thing, and everybody, all the preceptors and students wait till the end, towards the end of the semester to do this, which is not the end of the world. And that's the proficiencies. So the student does not see them. They see them on our Blackboard, so they have access, they know what they are. And what the student is supposed to do, what the key on supposed to, is go to you every couple of weeks and say, can we look at my proficiencies? I know that you saw me do an eval on a back or an ankle. Can we mark those off? Or it's now at the end of the semester and I haven't seen a back. Can we do a mock scenario or something like that? So what would be great as a preceptor, but I get that you guys have, you know, other jobs, like being the athletic trainer, would be you go to them every couple of weeks and say, let's look at your proficiencies here. And, oh yeah, you know what, I saw you tape, I saw you do this, and then save and finish later, right? But I can tell you, and maybe Colleen, you don't do this, I don't know, but towards the end of the semester, you look at all the proficiencies and say, yes, I can draw, I can do this, we can do this.
You know who does it really well, actually, is Steve.
Okay.
Steve does it, because I think he's such a visual person, and now he'll deny it when he shows up, but he prints out the proficiencies.
Yeah.
He prints them out on paper and keeps them right next to his desk. So then he sees it all the time, as opposed to it being on the web. So then every once in a while, I'll see him, and I'm always get jealous. I'm like, oh, it's Steve being a go-getter, you know, like, because he'll have the packet out, and he'll be like, look, let's do this real quick. Whereas I'm that way. I wait till the end, and I try not to be, but it's like, oh, yep, I saw them do that, and they did that well, and oh, they sucked at that. Or
so you're giving them a scale.
The ones I really pay attention to, or that I try to keep up on, are when they do things bad, and you're like, whoa, that is something we need to come back and work on.
Right, because if they're not proficient, now you don't have to, like if you saw them do it bad, the whoa, and now we need to work on it, so I don't have to mark them off bad right now, but if they're still bad at the end of the semester, then they're bad.
Is that true?
So they can
That's what we
retest. That's
Yeah,
if you're
yes.
formally doing it, then
Yeah,
that's
it's
not, then you need to
formally
mark
correct.
them off as not
Correct,
proficient,
yeah.
right? But if you saw it,
Okay.
all right,
The only
and
good thing is you have fellowship students, so
yeah,
at this point, they shouldn't be, whoa.
you know, so if it has been formal, yes. If
Yes.
not, yeah, I think
Yeah,
on the letter of the
that's what's
law,
the tough
there's
part.
not proficient, but
Correct,
but
that's the tough part.
we can, if you can coach them and get them proficient, that is
So
where we
I
want them to
can,
be.
these proficiencies
I
occur
can show you.
throughout the course of the
Yes,
semester.
so,
Correct.
correct. You will get it,
So-
you will get a date, you will get it at the start of the
It's not like
semester.
they have to have the knee by this day.
No,
It's like whenever anything comes in, I can
Yes.
think, oh, good, now you're
yeah, now
proficient in
technically
it.
Colleen's right, if they're not proficient, you should mark them as not proficient,
Correct.
and then you can retest them.
Yeah, that's what.
Okay.
You know,
That's-
I use,
that
for
is the-
example, for residency one students, their proficiencies, because it aligns with what they've learned, right? So, like residency one, a lot of their proficiencies are tapings and wrappings. So, you know, the first time I see a student do an ankle tape job, I think technically by the letter of the law, I'm supposed to
You
grade
you
him.
are, but yes.
And when he does it terrible, I'm supposed to give him a failing score and then retest him.
Yeah. No, so, yeah, so let me restate that, let me restate it
Yeah.
here too. If you notice they are not proficient, you are to mark them as not proficient, but you can go back and
And there's
reevaluate.
like a section on it.
And there's a
that-
section on there, and
there's a date when you reevaluated them and their new score
Yeah.
and.
So let me show this to you.
So it doesn't, it's not detrimental to them in the end if they become proficient in everything.
Well, so it'll affect their grade if you look at their syllabus, but
Yes.
it won't kill
Okay.
them, so to speak, because,
Yeah, here's the residency, this is one,
so this is 2, I think,
oh, two,
yeah. I think it's 2.
oh, it might be, yeah. Yeah, there.
So anyway, what'll happen, if you look at, you're gonna get a 0 to 10 scale, right? Proficient, all right, not proficient, there. So, this is where you would mark them off, all right? How did they do? So if you saw them do a lower extremity, and it was really pretty good, you mark them accordingly, all right? Okay, so that's your proficiency. Now that, again,
And
that needs to be done at the end of the semester. We would love you to do it throughout, that would be
Okay.
great. I usually talk to the students and say, because I put it more on the students, like, because they have access to it. Talk to your preceptors about your proficiencies, right?
Okay.
And then you will start getting emails towards the end of the semester saying, hey, just make sure the proficiencies get completed.
Because what happens, if not, all of a sudden, you get to the end and they have proficiencies on abdominal eval, skin evaluation, eyes, ears, nose and throat, and cardiac. And you're like, oh my God, I also have all this other stuff. So if you
Right.
don't do it throughout, it does catch up to you all of a sudden at the end and you're like, oh my God.
Yeah. So, and again, and that's the same thing. You sign and submit, they go in, sign and submit.
Okay.
All right? And that's it as far as forms go. I will say one of my biggest nemesis, I don't know, is the hour sign-off, the preceptors. The preceptors, one, are bad at it, and two, I think A-Track is again, not user-friendly, that the preceptors think that they have signed off on the hours, and they have not.
Really?
So who
Yes.
keeps track of the hours? The student or us?
The student logs their hours in, all right? They should log in every day. The students know that, and they are decent at it. They're not great, they're decent,
Depending on the student.
depending on the student, and I have gotten much more vigilant
Yeah, I think that's what's
Okay.
really helped is.
on checking it, because I will send them,
Doug will
I will
send
send
out
them
emails.
sarcastic emails, like, did you know Shayna's email?
Oh, no.
So, she logged in her hours, and they're supposed to put comments like, not a lot of comments, but
What they
did an
think.
eval on, saw this. So she would just hit the keyboard, like display letters, right? Because she didn't think anybody checked it out. So it came out like DJKLP.
Oh.
So I emailed her like, I am unfamiliar with DKLJP stands for in the athletic training world. Please explain that. You know?
And she probably got so
Yeah,
embarrassed.
she got a little flustered at that one. And although Colleen, I usually CC the preceptor of
Because every once in a while, a student will go like a month and a half without logging hours, and